We now come to the urgent question, Dame Priti Patel.
To ask the Secretary of State for FCDO if she'll make a statement on Iran's violation of the ceasefire.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we strongly condemn the outrageous Iranian attacks on the territory or vessels of our Gulf partners, Bahrain, Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. This is a serious escalation. Strikes into countries in the region and their waters are a clear violation of international law and must stop. I have been in touch with my counterparts from all mentioned countries to express our solidarity and condemn these attacks. Iran's attacks on civilian vessels were in Omani waters. The UK stands with Oman, with its sovereignty over its own territorial waters, and for the principle and the law of freedom of navigation, both in the Strait and across the world. We stand with our partners in calling for de-escalation and a return to diplomacy. We want a durable, negotiated peace and the Strait of Hormuz to fully reopen. The dangerous re-escalation over the past few days and continued attacks hurts everybody. The greatest impact is, of course, felt by the poorest and the most vulnerable. Our priority now is ensuring unimpeded transit passage through the Strait without the threat of violence, tolls, fees or conditions. The ceasefire must deliver predictable access rather than ad hoc, case-by-case transit. We will continue to stand up for international law as reflected in UNCLOS, for freedom of navigation, global navigational rights, seafarer safety and the consistent application of existing rules.
Dame Priti Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The terrorist regime in Tehran has once again violated the ceasefire, illegally attacking commercial shipping in the Straits of Hormuz, striking our allies in the region, including Bahrain and Kuwait. These new assaults in the Straits on at least 3 tankers were the most in a single day since April, according to the UN International Maritime Organization. And earlier this week, the Iranians said it targeted Salman Port in Bahrain, where Britain and the US operate naval bases. What was the government doing when British assets were in danger and our security, friends and our allies were being attacked by Iran? What exactly is the government doing to help protect the thousands of British nationals in the region, once again finding themselves under rocket fire from Iran? Our security allies once looked at the UK to be a reliable and dependable partner, but their confidence is increasingly being shaken. How is the government going to put this right? This is a time for action, not words. I've asked again and again, what is the British government doing or has done to date through the CCPA agreement to support Bahrain? The NATO General Secretary said that the strikes by the US were absolutely necessary. Does this government agree? We've heard very little substance from the government in recent days, other than the Foreign Secretary's tele-remarks yesterday saying she was very concerned by the Iranian strikes. The US administration has announced it's reimposing sanctions, oil sanctions on Iran. Oil, which of course funds their terrorism. So when will this government stop the UK's financial system being used to launder Iranian terrorist funds? What is the government's assessment about whether the ceasefire framework and that 60-day period in the agreement, whether or not it remains? And let's be honest, Mr. Speaker, the fact that Iran continues to breach the ceasefire, threatens our interests on a daily basis, demonstrates that the government has failed to have a clear plan to get defence spending to 3% of GDP by the end of the decade, leaving our country exposed and our security at risk. So while ministers are putting their job security ahead of the defence of our interests of this country, this discredited Labour government has failed to offer solutions to the most serious and significant conflict the world has seen in decades, or be part of any negotiations. Mr. Speaker, Britain has a huge stake in the future of the Middle East, but under Labour, our interests are being neglected and our standing in the world is falling.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't quite know what to do with that. It was obviously not the case, as I'm sure the Shadow Foreign Secretary will know. The Shadow Foreign Secretary can look me in the eye and say it is unlikely to be the debates around the defence investment plan that led to strikes in Iran and indeed in the Gulf over the last few days. And I am here to talk about serious questions of war and peace. I hope we can avoid party politics in doing so.
Chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, Dame Emily Thornbury.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Can I begin by associating myself with my honourable friend's condemnation of Iran's attacks on its neighbours? I wonder if the Minister might agree that at least part of the problem and the fragility of the deal is its very ambiguity. It's a deal that was negotiated in haste and at a distance and through third parties, and it inevitably doesn't reflect agreement, but rather fudges some of the deep differences between the parties. I wonder if he would agree that what we need is a sustainable deal that is thoroughly negotiated, one with more detail and with recognition that inevitably concessions are needed on both sides.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, as a former negotiator myself, I'm reluctant to criticise fudges and creative language. Negotiators often must reach for them, but there are many areas which cannot be fudged and where there is no ambiguity. For example, the location of Oman's territorial rights, waters and the rights that flow from that. These strikes conducted by Iran this week were not only against land targets, they were against commercial shipping. There was no ambiguity whatsoever about the location of those vessels. Oman's waters, their rights, UNCLOS, these are not questions that were at the negotiating table in relation to the MOU. We will continue to stand for them here and in every place.